finally, you know, I made the commitment to go back to school for 5 weeks. I borrowed money from my mother, borrowed money from my brother, borrowed money from my sister. My father didn't have any. He was a gambler, and so he didn't have any money. And I moved to Toronto 2 weeks later, got into real estate school. June 20th, 1980, I graduated and passed the test on my own. First time in my young adult life that I actually feel proud of myself, doing something on my own accord and
Yeah.
stepping up to what was possible. That was the beginning of my life changing. And then he taught me how to sell real estate on commission only, and then taught me how to become a real estate agent. And that was the beginning, of my transformation.
Wow.
And every day he had me look at the goals that I had. He had me write down what would I need to believe in order to achieve these goals. And I came up with, I need to believe I'm smart enough. I need to believe I'm good enough. I need to believe I'm worthy. I need to believe it's possible. I need to believe I can learn. I wrote down all these beliefs. And then I took what I had written as my goals, which he told me to do, and my new beliefs and the habits that I would need to create. And I recorded them onto a cassette tape. And every day on my way to work, on my way home, I would listen to this cassette tape and see myself visualize, which is what he taught me how to do, myself achieving, becoming the next best version of myself. And that was the beginning of my passion for personal development because I was the guinea pig.
Yeah, right. And of course, as soon as you start seeing the results and you had some real contrast there to work with, it sounds like
first year I made $5,000 more than my father did.
Wow.
I made 30,000. My dad made 5,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah.
Well, and it seems like you just never stopped from there. Many multi-million-dollar companies created later, and of course, all the things that I mentioned at the top of the show. So, I'm going to go ahead and assume that your techniques have evolved over the years, and even recently with creating an app to help others. And so I'd love to, maybe since we don't have a ton of time together today, I'd love to just get what is some of the distilled wisdom that you over, your journey that you figured out to help others to tap into their superpowers.
Yeah, so I think the first thing, and I always I get into I challenged myself to study behavioral neuroscience and psychology to understand what am I dealing with this thing called my brain, right? This is my plastic brain, but every human being is born with this amazing gift. The human brain is worth what, $1 billion, $5 billion, $10 billion if you could replace it or replicate it. And so one of the things that I've discovered over the years is functionally every brain works the same. Just like functionally every gas car works the same, every electrical car functionally works the same, every human brain works the same. And most of us have never learned anything about our brain. So let me give you an example. When we talk about, what do you believe to be true? Were you born with those beliefs? The good ones, the challenging ones, the limiting ones, the expansive ones? The answer is no.
Yep.
Were you born with any fear? No. Were you born with a self-image or a self-worth built into you as a baby? No. Were you born with character traits? Yes. Were you born with certain genetic propensities? Yes. But we weren't born with any beliefs, any self-image, or any fears. And so where did I or you or anybody watching or listening develop the belief that I'm not good enough or worthy enough or smart enough or deserving? Where did we come up with that belief, that idea? And then where is that in the brain?
Yeah.
So the discovery of, I think, the century is really around the science of neuroplasticity. So when we're born with, about 100 billion brain cells. I think of them like 100 billion marbles, right? And these marbles formulate connections, right? Neural pathways, they're called. They connect no differently than a highway system connects to the road systems, from one city to the next. And so our brain develops these patterns or beliefs based on anything that we were told or experienced as a child when we didn't have the deductive reasoning ability to say, is this true or not? We just believe. We were in when we were born, we were born, and we're in the imprinting years, the first 2-3 years, then the modeling years, then the experiential years, and then we just refine and reinforce patterns that were given to us before we're 12 years old. So if you were born, let's say in my case, where I didn't do well in school, that meant I wasn't smart. Then I reinforced that for 15 more years because the evidence showed that I wasn't smart in school.
Right.
Now, we didn't take into consideration the fact that I was, didn't know the language. So I fell behind. But that's logical. A child mostly isn't logical. Right? That part of our brain hasn't come really online until we're in our mid-20s. So we develop these beliefs, we develop this self-image, we develop this self-worth, we develop what to be afraid of, what not to be afraid of, whether it's fear of being embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, judged, fear of failing, fear of disappointment, fear of, anything. And that triggers these different circuits in our brain. And so the reason I'm going there right away is most people have never understood how powerful they are. And they keep repeating these patterns because of how the brain is wired for, number one, safety and security, number two, avoidance of pain or discomfort, but number three is to conserve energy. And the way it conserves energy is it develops these habits. And then the habits just run automatically, thought habits, emotional habits, behavioral habits, which produce results. So what Mr. Brown did for me at the ripe young age of 19 is he had me deliberately create a new image in my mind of what was possible. He had me deliberately recite, remember, repeat, emotionalize these new beliefs as if they were real, even though they weren't real, because he understood the power of the subconscious mind. And so I was reciting beliefs. I believe that I'm worthy and smart enough to achieve my goal of $10,000 a month. I wasn't even making $1,000 a month when I said that. And at first, there's another voice in my head that says, that's bullshit. You're not making 10 grand a month. So I had like this, me deliberately saying something, and then something in my head was going, that's bullshit, right? And he taught me that is, like the Frankenstein's monster part of our brain that wants to keep us attached and behaving in ways that match our belief patterns, our expectation patterns, our set points. And he said, through spaced repetition, through visualization, through emotionalizations, you're actually activating and rewiring your own brain and your own beliefs and your own self-image. And so the fact that he was able to explain to me why I was doing it and then what to do when my other part of my brain said, that's bullshit, you're not making 10 grand a month. He gave me counter strategies, to be able to understand what was causing this negative, disempowering self-talk or this voice in my head to pop up, and just to go next. Hey, I don't need your old opinion anymore. And over the next, year, 2 years, 3 years, I went from making $30,000 a year as a real estate agent at 19, $151,000 at 20, $250,000 at 21. And then I went and traveled around the world to see the world with some of the money that I made. Wow. And then when I came back, I created my new vision, my new goals, and started doing the same thing again. And at 26, I started Remax of Indiana. And over the next 10 years, I opened up 85 offices, had 1,200 salespeople working for me, and we were doing $4.5 billion a year in sales. And then I taught it to them.
Wow. That's quite the journey. I mean, the contrast is really incredible when you think about, you're talking in the span of 10 years to go from, robbing homes or whatever you were stealing, at the kid, to that sort of expansion. And anyone, of course, who's had any sort of entrepreneurial ventures or even success knows what it takes to accomplish something like
Yeah.
that. So it really takes some discipline and